All right. Ready?
Wash it what?
All right. Welcome. Let's see if I can get this closer. This is the School District of Prescott Board of Education regular meeting. We have been in closed session since 5:30. We are now on item 5, Pledge of Allegiance. Steve, would you care to lead us?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 6 is recognition of visitors. Is there anybody in the audience that would care to be recognized tonight? Okay, we're going to move on. Item 7, good news.
We're going to start with our primary thespian to my left, who did an amazing job as in the most recent high school musical. And Ryan, take it away.
Thank you. So currently, we're really just working on making the week before prom, which is next week, fun for everybody. So we are planning some dress-up days and an assembly with the help of Mr. Figgy. And along with that, we've also received some news that as far as race-based logos go, there's also going to be a press release detailing some things about that, which we work towards in February with our t-shirt protest. But overall, we just want to make it a good last month for everybody at the high school.
And the administrative team will come forward with updates from each site. Sarah Dusick.
Hello. We are currently in the middle of our 4K and kindergarten application. There's still time to get registration before the students. So if you haven't turned it in, they can just drop it off at the office, or they can call Malone to get registration paperwork if they need it. Shout out to Paige Siebert, who has been feverishly working on putting together our kindergarten through 5th grade music programs. People can attend those at Malone Elementary. The 4th and 5th grade program is Tuesday, April 25th. The 2nd and 3rd grade program is Thursday, April 27th. And the kindergarten and 1st grade program is Thursday, May 4th. All of them starting at 6. And the Malone Parent Committee is doing a buy one, get one book fair before and after each of the performances on those 3 nights. And then just to shout out to the Malone Parent Committee, they did a quick or early entrance into staff appreciation with chair massages at all of the buildings this week. Teachers were able to get a 15-minute massage, and then the full week of staff appreciation week is May 8th.
Thank you. Michael Kozmowski.
Evening, Board. State testing is wrapping up across the district, so grades 3 through 8 are wrapping up by the end of the week, and then we just have some makeups next week. That'll be just in time for, at the high school, we'll be then moving into AP testing in early May. And then again, we get all that data back, and we have our data dig in August. But we've gotten some of our ACT data back, and we're pleasantly surprised with what we're seeing. This Friday, we have a dozen of our 5th graders that will be traveling to Baldwin to participate in the Math Masters competition, so we wish them well. And our student council for Earth Day next Monday, you'll see them out on the over by the track area and out on the other green space at the intermediate, and they're going to celebrate Earth Day by cleaning up our spaces. So thank you to the student council for putting that together.
Middle school.
Good evening, members of the board. Kyle Engel Middle School. I'd first like to congratulate all of the participants that persevered through the 4 tough rounds of the National Current Events League at the middle school. In 6th grade, Joey Graziani took first place with 64 points. 7th grade was Eli Roll with 71. And in 8th grade, with the highest score in the school district, was Colin Kozmowski. So as you see, their photos, we're all scrolling through up there. But congratulations to all of our National Current Events League participants. It was really tough. On the final, the round 4 that they did, was an extremely tough exam. And if you were not following along in nightly news, nearly nightly and probably a lot in the morning, you were not going to know a lot of those questions and or answers. Second of all, thank you for supporting our 3rd quarter acknowledgement day. Again, some photos up here. It's great to build some positive culture and some different fun cultures and teamwork. This quarter we went bowling, and it was a great celebration and acknowledgement of all the great things we did for third quarter.
Did you say Kozmowski was best in the district?
I did say Colin Kozlowski had the top score in the district.
Kind of a ringer, huh?
Thank you.
I'm going out of order, I'm shaking it up. Members of the board, Superintendent Spakuza, there's lots of many individual things to celebrate with our students around the district who have exceptional learning needs, of which I cannot speak to specifically. One thing that we have worked on this year collaboratively with the high school and the middle school is a wonderful Tier 2 program for SEL called Empower You. And Rick has had most of the connections with the company and with the implementation here at the high school. And so I am piggybacking with Rick, and he's going to share some of the successes of that program at the high school. Thanks, Mr. Montreal.
Yeah, no problem. So like Sandy said, this is implemented just this year, and it's a social and emotional behavior program, supports mental health and SEL. Basically, you're going online daily for lessons about 20 to 30 minutes in length. You get a one-on-one virtual personalized coach for each lesson who offers feedback every day. So it's really quick turnaround as far as what's taking place in the lessons. One of the main goals is to replace anxiety and depression with resilience and success. Students are able to take control, make their own goals to try to instill lasting change. Students are also hopeful to gain confidence, lower anxiety, improve their friendships, time management skills and grades at school, as well as attendance at school. The licensed instructors in the program all have their master's degree. Their goal is to build trust and relationships with their clients, their students, and offer that daily feedback I talked about. There's also a credit-bearing option with this in case students need a credit. So that's been kind of something we've tapped into that's been really nice for us. 20 students roughly at the high school and 10 at the middle school. So again, first year piloting seems to be going really well thus far. Thank you.
Good evening. First off, another shout out to the musical crew. They did an amazing job. If you happen to follow kind of the performances, we had a little hiccup on Saturday where our 2 o'clock performance wasn't able to happen due to technical difficulties. But it was amazing to watch our students and our crew that were part of that be able to pivot around and put on a really great performance Saturday night amidst a lot of uncertainty up until about 20 minutes before the performance. So that was amazing. I'd also like to highlight we have selected, or we've determined now that trimester number 2 is done of their senior year, our cum laude, our Latin honors students for this year, and we'll be presenting our summa cum laude, our top with highest honors students when we have our board meeting next month. But we're already starting to look, as Ryan said, towards the last month of our seniors year. We have prom coming up, we have spring fling, and then we have some of our awards and recognition nights, breakfast, and then graduation. The picture scrolling around here, I'd be remiss if I didn't do a shout out. It's not that picture right there, but it's coming up here, and it's the baseball team. The baseball team, especially some of our senior leadership on the baseball team, is doing some really, really amazing things. But one of the things that I gave a shout out to our staff that they did a week ago was they recognized that we employ a night cleaning crew here to help clean the bathroom. And if you've met Kreppen and his crew, they are some of the most personable, nice people, and very, very humble. And I think they worked here, Mike, help me out, 6 years, 5 years?
For sure.
Yeah. And I always just have a kind word for just about anybody who stops to talk to them. So our baseball senior leadership kind of rallied the entire group together, donated their own money to buy gift cards for this crew, and then even after the fact realized, well, when you go someplace and you spend a gift card, there's the picture. You have to still leave a tip, and tips can't come off of gift cards, so then they donated even more money for a cash tip and then presented it to that crew. So just a really huge kind of service, giving-minded action by our baseball team. And then the last shout out is just to Mike Boyka and his crew, not only in this building but across the district. They've been kind of short-staffed. You never know it by looking at the building. Again, always a smile on their face. This is the busiest time of year that we have. We're coming off of winter activities and athletics. We have spring happening outside, but just a lot of cleanup that needs to occur, and they're meeting every demand and going above and beyond. So just thanks to Mike and Adam, Matt, and everybody that works with your crew.
Good evening. Just want to do a congratulations and a shout out to all of our spring teams for a great start to the season, and a special thank you to everyone involved for being patient with the numerous schedule changes that occur every single day. Also want to thank our custodial staff for helping get our fields ready that we're able to start playing. Tyler Laux and Reese Stuff were recognized last week with their colleagues in the Middle Border Conference for being named Scholar Athletes this year at a really nice ceremony at St. Croix Central High School. Also, we want to congratulate and wish the best to our speech program and National History Day program, as they will both leave on Friday for Madison to participate in their state competitions. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. As the agenda was posted, you know that as we talk, this is a busy time of year. It's a busy time of year with regards to one, making sure that we're fiscally on target with our current budget, and we start preparing for future budgets. We start to ensure that we can retain and recruit the best and the brightest, and retain our highly qualified staff who continue to do amazing things every day for the desired daily experience that we want for our students in the Prescott Public Schools. The academic outcomes have increased, and tonight I'll be proposing some financial information and updates around our bid packages that the final ones were opened this afternoon between 2 and 4 o'clock. And so Mike Hoyka and Sue Gertis from the Finance and Facility and Grounds will be coming up and working with us at the board table tonight to kind of update where we are and where we're headed over the next 6 months before we finalize the fiscal year contract. In addition, an election occurred, and later today we will be accepting the oath of office from the individual that was canvassed and will be coming next month, and that's Helen Stokel, and Helen is in the audience. Helen has been working with myself and Mike Masick, the board president, and TeamWorks has done 2 onboarding programs with regards to understanding school governance, school board governance, and advocacy for students. In addition, she trekked up to Turtle Lake with me last night from 7 to 9, and she was there an hour early just to make sure that she didn't miss a thing. And we both got home after 10 p.m. And then we returned to our duties and are here tonight. So, Helen, as we onboard you, it also means that something must change, and that is that all systems change, and that tonight we recognize Steve Sizemore for his time and efforts on behalf of the public schools, and more importantly for our youth within the public schools. He's been a great advocate and was on the initial board that approved my superintendency. I don't know if the vote was unanimous, but but he was on that board, and he's one of the individuals that I've had the longest tenure working on, and appreciate his service. On behalf of your colleagues, we do have a plaque.
Surprise. I was hoping for an envelope of money.
Medically sealed. And I will present that to you.
Well, I'll look at it later. I can't get it open. Oh, very nice. Thanks, guys. You want me to read it?
You have to.
It says, what does it say, WASB? Anyway, presented to Steve Sizemore for your dedicated service to the Prescott School District 2014 and 2023. So, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes, thank you. Anybody want to make any comments here for Steve? Any final parting words? I'll start, Steve. just really quick, 9 years on the board with you. I'll say this, I think over the 9 years, I look back and I know a lot of, partnership with the community and the administration and the school board together, we've accomplished quite a bit if you check the boxes on all the things that we've done over the 9 years. It's been pretty amazing. And I mean, I think you've been an excellent fit for this board, pushing back where there needs to be pushback and diversifying opinions. And I appreciated working with you for the 9 years, and you're going to be missed. Congratulations on getting out with, well, you didn't have any hair to start with, so. But thank you for everything. Thanks for everything you've done, and I appreciate your contributions and service to the school district. It's been fun.
Thanks. I have a couple comments, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify why I chose not to run and dispelling myths. It's not because I'm frustrated, it's not because I'm irritated, it's not because I've had enough. I pursued something a couple years ago that I was really interested in from a higher education level, and was accepted on a foundation board of directors at one of the UW system schools. So I started that last year, and it became apparent pretty quickly that I wasn't really going to be able to give it all to both positions. So I had to make the hard decision to not run for a fourth term. So just so everyone understands why I didn't run, it had nothing to do with anything within the district. It had nothing to do with Dr. Spikuza. It was just a personal and mostly a personal decision. So, but I want to say thank you to the students, right? Because we wouldn't be here without them. Some of the most important people in the buildings. Maintenance, custodial staff, fantastic group of people. Our food service staff. I don't get to come to eat lunch very often anymore since my kids are way out of elementary school, but always appreciate those folks. Nursing staff over the years, transportation team, bus drivers. Could never do that job, although I've considered it when I retire maybe, but I probably won't.
We give free training.
Yeah, great. All the district aides, often unsung heroes, but thank you for the work you do. District staff, including you, Dr. Spikuza. It's been a challenging office for several years, and it seems like it's finally settled in a really good place. So excited for that. Building principals, we've got some great leaders in our buildings, probably the best set of principals I've seen in my 9 years on the board. But don't forget the teachers. Most important people in this district. They're the ones that spend the time with the kids. They're the ones that set and work on curriculum. I'm a little biased, but just want to say thank you to everybody.
Steve, I feel like you might be choking up there. Thank you, Steve. I came on the board a handful of years after you, and I just really appreciate your leadership. I've learned a lot from you, and you're one of the people, everybody within the board, but you're one of the people that I know that I can reach out to if I have questions, especially in governance and procedure and stuff like that. So I appreciate your leadership and all that you've done.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve. Similar comments to Tanya, but great mentor with my time coming up on the board. So I really appreciate that, and it's been fun.
Been a pleasure.
And thanks. This was never on my radar to ever be on the school board, and
you're gonna blame me for it.
Yeah, right.
Not gonna blame you. I'm glad I decided to run. So thank you for bringing this opportunity forward for me and saying, yep, I think you'd be good at it. So I appreciate that, and same as Tanya, when it comes to questions and even unsolicited advice, I take it. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Glad you're able to jump into CISA level too.
Yeah, right.
For that.
And yeah, I will go ahead and take that on and see what happens from there. So.
Perfect.
All right, Ryan, any parting shots at Steve, or?
You said we wouldn't be here without the students, but I don't think the school district would be as good of a place as it is right now if it weren't for you and everyone on the board. So thank you, and thank you, all of you, and your leadership doesn't go unnoticed.
Yay. All right, enough of this. Thanks, everyone. We're going to move on to the business section. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it, really. We got our first item's a consent agenda, so I got to read through this. We have the March 29th regular board minutes, board checks and finance, non-licensed personnel, retirement, resignation, employment, change of non-licensed staff. We have the 23-24 school age care program agreement.
Correct, typo, thank you.
So, yeah, my fault. Accepting Helen Stokel's signed and notarized official oath and a bunch of board policies from Neola, the changes that we have here. So, is there anything in the consent that anybody would like to have pulled out?
I got an embarrassing one.
Uh-oh.
Just because I think that you've told me this before, but the March payroll checks are indicated as none. Because why?
We have an expert in the audience.
In the consent agenda, if we can go to it, the March payroll checks are listed as none, and that is because they're
all direct deposits.
okay. Thank you.
There we
That's
go.
what I thought. Wanted to make sure.
We just didn't pay anybody.
People, thanks, Sue.
Didn't want to push that through the consent agenda.
Okay.
Fair enough. All right. Anything the board would like to be pulled out? Otherwise, I will adopt the consent agenda. Are there any objections? So there's no objections. Consent agenda is adopted. Thank you. We'll move on to item B, consider retirement, resignation, new hires. There's no retirements. We have a few resignations.
we do. We have our middle school band teacher, Jonathan Van Goot, and Caden knows. No, but he is our high school business teacher. Both are resigning at the end of this school year.
Questions or comments from anyone here on the board?
No.
Okay, we can take a motion.
I'll move to approve all resignations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries on the new hires.
We have two. We currently have extended an offer for a second grade teacher, Caitlin Benz, and then Allison Langer for high school English language arts.
Questions, comments, board? Otherwise, we can take a motion. Yep, go ahead.
I just had one comment, which was, I think that both of them are coming from the University of Wisconsin River Falls, if I remember correctly, and have worked within our district, and I think that's just really awesome when we can have student teachers and long-term subs and stuff want to stay within our district. So welcome, and I think it's great right off the bat. Good relationship with River Falls.
Yep.
I'll move to approve all new hires.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries. Item C.
I'm going to have Mr. Figge come forward. This is something that we've come, and at my oversight, I think last time the board had asked that we got to a point that we could probably put this into consent. It's a great thing to celebrate, but we do have 12 students, so it will move to consent in the future, but since we had it posted as business, I'll let Mr. Figge remind you about the two programs and the 12 students that we're asking for approval.
For first-time listeners out there. And I promise we'll only try and do this twice each year. That's usually what it is. But ECCP refers to the Early College Credit Program. It allows our students to access four-year university programming. Typically at the University of River Falls, although we've had some students take courses at Green Bay and the University of Madison virtually. We currently have a number of students who are seeking these credits. Wisconsin statute says that, and our board policy mirrors statute, that we would recognize up to 18 credits that the district would support as long as those credits are outside of what we currently offer in the district. So our students are all students who are well below that 18 credits and are seeking to take courses, and a majority of them, if you look, are in specific pathways that they are seeking for the post-secondary work. Most of our students, actually every one of these students is a senior student next year, and most of the students that we see accessing these programs access them only in their senior year. Our Start College Now is very, very similar It is students who are looking to take collegiate coursework at a technical college. Our partnership is with CBTC, so students have to take through CBTC. And the premises are the same. It needs to be outside of what we are currently offering, so you're going to see students who are going above and beyond or deepening their coursework. The only real difference between the two programs is that ECCP has state reimbursement, and we see a reduced cost in the overall credits because the state subsidizes part of those, and the university gives us a partial fee per credit. We do not get a reimbursement for Start College now, but those are oftentimes cheaper credits through the 2-year because we still see a reduced credit cost for those courses.
Any questions from the board or comments?
Is this our most, I mean, we have 12 kids, which is really great. This has got to be one of the most that we've seen.
Yeah, so I think I want to say thank you to the school board because I think in my first year, we maybe had one student who was taking one class. And it was really focused on math typically, and looking at the collection of classes up there, you're going to see we still heavily emphasize math. We have people taking Calc 2 and Calc 3 even this year, but now we're starting to see things spread out. We've got some people going deep into welding and the tech trades. We have some other people going deep into behavioral sciences. So I think it's kind of a testament that the school board supports it, that our counselors recognize that the relevancy of the coursework in your senior year really matters to seniors to make sure that they stay engaged, and then for our community just to support something like this that is really, really good for families.
It's great, thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
All right, we can take a motion.
I'll move to approve the high school proposal for the students and courses listed as presented in the ECCP and Start College Now for the fall of 2023 classes.
I'll second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries. Item D is consider stipend adjustment for custodial site leads.
Yes, Mike Koika and I have been working on this for a number of months. As in the good news, you heard about how well our custodial staff has been doing across our 4 sites, but understand that they've been doing this shorthanded. We've had 2 open positions, then 2.5, and now with a recent resignation tonight, 3.5 positions. In addition, we are preparing for the flip-flop of 3 grades moving from the intermediate school over to, from the middle school over to the intermediate school, and then conversely, 4th and 5th grade moving over to the middle school facility. We started to box up. We've been working on different projects and coordinating the bid packages that you'll hear a little bit later. Our custodial site leads have been reimbursed a stipend of $600 per year. That has not changed in over 15 years. As we continue to work with that group, and based on Mike's advocacy, we are bringing forward tonight to be able to increase that stipend beginning July 1st from the current $600 to $1,200 a year. It would be basically a $100 stipend for every month that they work. They are year-round employees, and we think it would be well justified for the additional work that they've been taking on and have been doing because of being short-staffed.
Pat, any comments or questions here?
Comments, no. I mean, have a lot of faith and trust in what Mike does as a leader and the people that he's chosen to lead. Someone already talked to it about the testament of how our buildings and grounds look, so it hasn't been changed in, Rick, did you say 15 years?
I think
15 years, so it's certainly time. So I'm happy to support this.
Tanya?
In addition to what Pat mentioned, I think it's also important to recognize that some of our positions are harder and harder to fill, and this is one of those positions. So we see it, we feel it, you felt it all year, and so I think it makes a lot of sense and to increase that salary. These are people within our district that make it so we can operate day to day and do all the things that we want to do. So good move.
Yeah, Steve?
No additional comments.
Vicky?
No, I feel the same as Tanya.
Ryan, anything on this one?
No, they definitely deserve it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no other comments here. I'm glad we can do it. So we can entertain a motion here.
I'll move to approve the increase of our stipend from $600 per year to $1,200 per year for lead custodians beginning July 1st, 2023 with the new fiscal year.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries. Thank you. We'll move on. Item E, consider implementing a stipend for food service leads for 2022-23.
Yes, one of the things that's been on our radar is trying to, again, identify people that are going above and beyond. Within our 4 buildings and then over at St. Joe's, we currently are providing 5 full service for breakfast and lunch to our 1,300 students, plus the St. Joe's families and students. We do have lead cooks, but they are not differentiated in their hourly pay rate, yet typically they are there a little bit earlier. Yes, they get compensated for additional hours, but they are providing both oversight, mentorship. They are the ones that help close out, and all the paperwork that works with Nicole Lenzer. Nicole has been working with me to try to identify how we could do this. We'd like to do it in 2 steps. We would like to provide a stipend for our lead cooks as of this year of $250, and then beginning next year as we start to recruit, it would include St. Joe's at that time and the 4 buildings, and have that stipend be $300 permanently moving forward. Just a reminder that food service runs out of Fund 50. This would not have any impact on Fund 10, and Fund 50 runs on its own collections and expenses.
Yeah, good clarification. Steve, any questions or comments here?
I'm just looking forward to reading the motion.
Vicki?
No, I think it's a great idea to differentiate the people who put in a little more time and are the people that we count on the most to get through food service, so I like this idea.
Great. Ryan, anything on?
No, I completely agree.
Okay, thanks. Tanya?
Rick, I just had a quick question, which is, the fund that this is coming from is revenue based on the sales of our lunches and milk and that kind of stuff. So that stipend, although, it's $250, next year $300, it's going to be a great gesture, I think. And really it is dependent and can only kind of stay within the parameters of what we're able to bring within. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that. If we could give more, we would, kind of thing. And it's great. They do a lot of leadership for us. So thank you.
Pat?
No, well, I lied. I do have an additional comment. I think it's a great use to reward those people while still trying to be doing everything we can for families to keep prices low. But we do need to recognize those that certainly put the program in motion and keep it flowing.
All right. Yep, I'm glad we can make this happen. It's a start.
So let me say real quickly that 9 years ago when Tom Magnan retired from the board made him read every motion that night. And it was like 14, 15 motions.
This is easy.
This is a new decade.
I lucked out tonight.
Yeah.
I move to approve the administration recommendation to provide a stipend for our 4 locations of $250 per lead and to $300 per year beginning July 1st, 2023, with the new fiscal year, including our agreement with St. Joe's.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries. All right, we can move on to information discussion. A lengthy one at that. First one is a bid package 3 results earlier today.
And I'm going to try, because this is pretty complex, I'm going to ask Mike Hoyka and also Sue Gertis to come to the round table. We're going to try to do this in a more informal way of discussing with you what we see as kind of intertwined topics that can't really be defined just in their mutually exclusive conversation. So what we are going to talk to you about is the financial situation within the state and funding for public education. We will overall be asking you 3 specific questions. The fiscal year budget is not approved typically until after the annual meeting, once a year. and then it is approved in the month of October. We have 6 months prior to October between now and that time. Our goal is to kind of ask for whether or not the types of suggestions and recommendations that we're making fit in with the parameters and allow us to continue to do business, such as working with the referendum, making decisions based on where our referendum packages have been, to make and post our increases for salaries across the hourly, and then by statute, we are required to provide our teachers with contracts, or at least the intent to renew them by May 15th. Finally, we are also awaiting the end of a biennium redo on the funding for public education. I did have the benefit, and I think this is a really good synopsis from the Wisconsin Rural School Alliance. Basically, 75% of all public schools in the state of Wisconsin are classified as rural. There are 4 specific areas that we are asking the legislature to consider. It is part of the CISA 11 superintendent letters that we posted in all 39 districts across CISA 11, and that was read at the board meeting and then published in Pierce County Journal. I want to thank community members that have picked up on that and then reached out. And what's important for all of us to understand is that when we talk about funding from the legislature, it's whether or not they're giving us an increase in dollars over and above what they currently are giving to us per pupil. And this will make more sense as we go through the different items. Currently, over the last 2 years, the legislature has provided no additional increases to per pupil funding for public education. What that means is as costs go up, no additional dollars are being covered by the state. In addition, there is a levy cap that all districts, the 400 plus in the state of Wisconsin, cannot go above. That means that when additional dollars were funded that you see, we applaud because it went to taxpayers, but it did not go into the classrooms. It did not go to teachers. It did not go for supplies. It did not go for curriculum. It did not go to salary. It went to lower property bills for our community, which we applaud. But we need a both and. And so we are asking for people to focus in on special education funding. Currently, we receive about 30% of the true cost of special education. 100% of districts within Wisconsin provide what is referred to as a cross subsidy. Our district provides, on the last 3 years, $1.4 to $1.8 million out of Fund 10 to cover the additional costs for special education. Smaller class sizes, medically fragile, and highly qualified master level educators. Per pupil, you can see, and this is posted on our website, you can see what happens when the funding stays stable, is that a population of 600 students, basically the max revenue limit. The only thing that can change the amount of revenue is that we have more students enrolling. The public press, Wisconsin, we know that enrollments are declining, and therefore their revenue limits are declining. Prescott has been benefited from stable but not increasing enrollment. Mental health, we've talked about how we have added resources and additional counselors since the last few years. We've brought and provided co-located services through Family Means, and then added a 3rd day using ESSER dollars. Then in addition, a lot of people believe that every school gets the same amount of money per pupil, and that is not true. It was based on what you were funded and how you were spending dollars in 1993. That has not changed. So there can be a low revenue district for every student, they get $10,000, versus a high revenue district that gets $12,000. What that means, you could have the same enrollment provide the same services, have the same number of rooms, classrooms, and teachers, and receive $1.3 million difference on your revenue. That is the Tetris game that we play. The reason I have Sue and Mike here is that this Tetris game, this has been, in my 20-plus years of working with educational budgets, one of the most challenging. We have the blessing of support of our community, where we have $15 million to invest in our 3 buildings that are youngest is 1969. And that $15 million will be invested in those buildings starting this summer and carry over to 2024. In addition, as we go through this, we want to be able to talk about how we set up our budgets and how that interacts with your fund balance, Fund 46, and our current revenue. And so with that, earlier today, Mike and I were present at the last 3rd bid opening. It started at 2 o'clock and concluded just a little bit before 4. And Mike, if you could just give us an update with regards to, we have now opened bid packages for the intermediate school, the largest amount of money that the referendum will be invested in. Malone Elementary was done, and now for the middle school facility. How are we standing with regards to budget?
With all 3 bid packets completed, and they still have to confirm all the contractors and stuff, but we will be under budget at all 3 locations. So with that said, we can also go back and look at, when we started out, we thought we were going to be a little over budget. We started pulling some projects back out. Now we go back and look at putting those back in, stuff that was, like energy saving type things that we had, and that whole long list that we had from the facilities committee planning was pretty extensive. So we're going to be able to go back in and probably do a good share of those items that are on there, and we've also expanded some of those projects already. So
awesome. So I think that a couple things Mike alluded to is that prior to sending out the bids, we were concerned about the electrical side. They were coming in based on the experience of Market & Johnson very high, and they asked us to try to pare down so that we could come in close to target. We did eliminate all LED fixtures and sensors over at Malone Elementary. As you remember, in 2018, we did an energy savings. We would like to move forward with that LED, put that package out. Not only will it be good dollars spent, but it will mitigate some of our kilowatt use and therefore provide some savings for future utilities. There's a couple other things, as Mike said, is that we did cut from the facility advisory, and each of these items that we talk about tonight, I would like to just kind of remind you, there's at least three options that we're asking for, or guidance from the board. Do you give us permission, Mike and myself and Sue, to continue to work with Market & Johnson to select items that were discussed during the facility and fall under the referendum question, as long as it meets those parameters, so that we can continue to be efficient and timely? Do you want us to come back with a formal proposal at each board meeting with what we would be proposing, or would you like to have a special session to discuss those?
Well, I guess I'm going to open it up here, and I know this is kind of coming at everybody probably for the first time, so does anybody have any initial thoughts on this that they want to share with the board at all?
I don't care if you come back to another meeting to talk about it.
Right, okay, that's kind of what I figured.
Sure. Initial is that's awesome. That's great. Dr. Spacuzzi, you said three questions. So remind, number one, help me understand that one again.
So the way I would frame it up is that we already have the information between Sue, Mike, and myself on what the committee had approved. We would like to then continue to just engage with Market and Johnson. They would like to propose working with our architects Thursday or Friday of this week, and maybe put out some additional bids to accomplish some of the additional work. For example, the LED, they've been having good success on turning those around in a very short amount of time. The second option would be that we would come back in May with a specific proposal of 1, 2, 3 additional projects. The dilemma for us is just the efficiency and the ability to get those bid packages out and be nimble. The other one would be have a special meeting so that you could review all the FAC kind of things and try to prioritize, although we already had done that as part of the process. But I wanted to kind of be transparent for everybody. It's just, the good news is, for the first time in a long time, Prescott is on target and under budget. It means that we can expand. It has to match all of the requirements of the FAC list and also the referendum question.
So if I understand, I'm not interested in slowing you guys up or making good decisions. I think, I know I can't speak for the entire Facilities Advisory Committee, but I think there's a ton of faith, Mike, in what, you deem is important. I think my question is, when you guys are deciding what to do and what not to do, does anything fall outside of what the FAC said was, we had 4 buckets, right? And we put, I think, if I remember right, we came to the board suggesting that the top 3 buckets, all those projects get done if possible. So from my perspective, if they fell within those 3 buckets, I personally would just as soon have you guys, time is of the essence, and get it done.
Yeah, we would only look at projects that were on that that Facilities Committees group, that big list that we had and everything on there. We had, high priority, medium priority, and low priority. We would be taking all those into consideration. We started out doing all the high priorities and some of the medium type priority stuff. Now we would try and incorporate getting that whole entire list done, whatever we have. So we're not going to do anything new. Everything that was discussed at the Facilities Committee meeting and the report that we presented to you is all items that we would be working on.
So maybe just Dr. Spoo's rephrasing is, if I personally wouldn't need to see anything if we weren't picking an item from the no priority list and putting it above something with a priority. Does that make sense?
Yep, and that's why I wanted to also share that it's Sue, myself, and Mike. Nothing's unilaterally being made. And in full disclosure, what we would do is be giving you, and we are giving you, updates every month about these projects and bids. So I would see us being able to work this week if you grant us to continue to move in this direction. And then each board meeting, we would give you and be able to give you an update with regards to what projects we've been able to add, whether or not they fall this summer or next summer.
Tanya, any?
No, I agree with Pat. The FAC already had that committee. You were, probably spearheaded that committee. As long as everything falls within there, I think you guys can make those professional decisions about what we need from this point on. I don't need to do a work session, or we spent probably close to a year doing that kind of stuff. So I think we're there.
Yeah, Steve?
No more comments, thanks.
Vicki?
Yeah, I think you had your list and the committee prioritized with your help where things should be, and they certainly put a lot of faith in your judgment, as do we, so you know what we need. So yeah, that's just it, like Pat said, we had prioritized everything, and if we can grab some of that stuff that was at the bottom now and get that put on there, that would be great, because that just helps us down in the future if we get this stuff done now while we can.
Ryan, any comments on this?
Nothing for this.
Just really quick, so so in my head, we had, when the facilities committee came with the proposals, there was like a proposal for 10 million, there was a proposal for 16 or 15 or 16 million, and then and that was like 21.
Right.
Are we talking about just the stuff that was in the bucket that was labeled 16 million that was part of the referendum that we had to pull out, or are we talking about stuff that we?
So it's a 2x2. We had we had those different price points.
Yep.
But in addition, we had these exercises where we asked people to put them into priority buckets. What was a high priority, mid, and low? And so within the 15 million, 17 and 20, there still were things identified as high priority, mid, or low priority. I think what we're asking, and I can tell you, the one like the electrical and LED, that's a pretty high priority. It just, we were coached through that it was going out for bid, that it probably wasn't going to make it. And so now it turns out that we can. And what we're asking permission is just to kind of go back through those lists, move forward with the two groups, and identify what's the best kind of sequencing, given how close summer is. Because we'll have more time. What we're trying to do is quickly add anything we could for summer 2023 while we're have a lot of people out of the rooms to execute.
Yeah, I mean, 100% agree with the rest of the board. Full faith and confidence and trust in you guys to make the right decisions. We definitely don't want to be a roadblock, especially when time is of the essence. I'll be curious to know like what we get done and then what's left on that list that committee put together, and just kind of get a picture of, you know, where things are at, because we always knew that we might have to come back for additional funding from some source. So once we're done with the project, you know what's left. Right. I think that'll be interesting, and I know we're a ways out. We're just starting here, so. But
sorry, we got one more. You guys, what are we doing? What's Market and Johnson doing about work that's not going to happen this summer? That's going to happen next year. What are they doing to hold pricing, add escalation factors to it? What are we doing to make sure that we're protecting that budget?
I believe they put some of that. You know, there is some of that dollar amount is still held that, you know, can be used like a contingency, whatever. So if there is an increase or something, we're still that. We're not going to, you know, go right down to the penny. Okay. There's going to be room for the increases. There's always that stuff, you know, when you get in construction that, okay, there's a hole in the wall we didn't anticipate. So yes, that will be there so we can stay on budget. You know, we're going to use it wisely. We're going to take their advice. The market, what escalation should be, is it 3% or should we truly be at 4%? We're going to take their information and their experience and make sure that we keep that budget in line all the time.
Good. Thanks.
And and just kind of tweaking that, each building based on its age and the degree of difficulty thinking about diving, right? So that if it was a more difficult building, our middle school facility, based on its age and some of the work, we have placed a higher percentage increase in the contingency on that building, even though it'll have less work just because of the age and things like that. The other piece that each bid, if it wasn't going to happen this summer, they had to bid what their price would be for summer of 2024. Good. So it was always apples to apples, so that some of the
funding was for a lot of contractors. You will be doing some this year and some next year, so they had to bid accordingly.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what a great story. This is awesome to be in a position like this where we can actually, you know, not cut, we can add stuff back in. Yeah, so
it's great. And then, you know, it's about showing what we did and what we, you know, what's been done, what's been taken off. And as we go through this, I don't know if you guys seen this before, but we got the, you know, long range plan. We'll be taking a bunch of that off there. My long range worksheets is, you know, like 4 sheets, got every piece of equipment on there. That will be all updated, so you'll know. Yeah, you know, we'll leave the old stuff that we replaced on there and the new stuff that replaced it, so you'll be able to see all that stuff. As we go, I'll be keeping this updated.
Great.
So,
we'll
also the community stuff from River Valley, you know, they have that long sheet. We'll be updating that too. They will be.
that answers your question number one.
Yep, I appreciate it, and we'll make sure that we get you updates. Mike and I were asked to try to clear our calendars, and we're just waiting for River Valley based on, I will update them later tonight, and we'll try to have our scheduled meeting Thursday or
So we're
Friday.
gonna have an extra meeting.
Now, you think summer is, people always say it's a quiet time in education, au contraire. So this year, more than ever, it'll be enhanced with regards to every year at this time. Not only are we doing referendum work, but Mike is also doing his regular maintenance work. And what we wanted to do is this is the segue to give you what he accomplished last summer into fall.
Okay, hold on, Rick. I got to make sure. So are we on item B now?
Nope, we're still, yes, we are on B. Yep.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yep, sorry.
So we're on item B, facility, summer, and fall projects update. Okay.
Yep, thank you. We get the referendum stuff going, then Mike's going to be doing everything else with his group. So 3 stages. We're going to remind you what was accomplished last year so that you understand the price point. Mike gets about just under $500,000 a year in his budget to repair, maintain different things. Then we're going to show you what he's going to be tackling this summer into fall, beyond and outside of the referendum. And then this will link to letter C, item C, which is Fund 46, which is saving money for future capital. So Mike, I'll turn it over to you. You can kind of describe just the range of things that were accomplished and then what the grand total was.
This is some projects that we did last summer. Just asphalt repair, furnace repairs in the bus garage, exterior doors, upgrade the stage floors, upgrade the lighting controls and LED. That was a big savings for us, being able to control some of the lights in this building. Want to do more LED controls, or not controls, but more LED lighting. The lighting controls really helped us out. Now, one thing that's not out there is we did quite a bit with building automation controls. Wasn't a big ticket item, but it was working. Me going into some of the building automation software and also working with Train to run our buildings more efficiently, occupied sensors and stuff, reviewing a lot more calendars and trying to only occupy what we need to do, and things like that. So it's just kind of a list of some of the stuff we do in the summer. This is this is all stuff that's contracted out. And of course, the other stuff that's done is custodial, the painting, the repairs, the preventive maintenance, most all our inspections, the backflow pretenders, boilers, and all that stuff is also taken care of during the summer. Elevators, they're all inspected at that time,
So kind of this time of year, as Mike kind of prepares, last year we spent just over $118,000 of his fiscal year budget. Now we're going to move into what has occurred. We kind of had given you an update, but as we move forward, remember the high school is not part of the referendum dollars. Those were for our 3 older buildings. This will be important because when you start to look at what the cost is that's going into just maintaining the building, and compared to what we spent district-wide last year, the costs are starting to go up. As we get to other slides, everything that's in referendum will be in red, and anything that's Mike's budget will be in a different color. Mike, do you want to just explain the first 3? And that was just one crystallized oops or surprise that we deal with on an annual basis. We just didn't want it to happen at the high school.
Yeah, those 3 first projects have been done already. That's when we had over the cold spell, over the holiday break, we had a sprinkler head activate, unfortunately. That was a cost to repair that damage from that replacing the cabinets, the carpet, the vestibule. And to help resolve that problem was installing a heater, new thermostat, relocated diffuser, had a different type of diffuser in there. We did some extra insulation in the, what I call the chimney area. So that was to help, that was to repair that and hopefully that never happens again. With having some different automation controls in there. Some other things, the mow and trim around the stormwater pond, that's a maintenance we have to do periodically. Part of it is to maintain that dam so it doesn't erode away. It's also a requirement from the, become more of a requirement from the DNR as we move forward with storm and retention ponds in Wisconsin. Like I said, last year we did a bunch of LED lighting in the gym, commons, and hallways. We have seen a decrease in electrical use, so we did see some savings. I have out right now for some more bids for doing this whole southern part of the building, which would be all the classroom pods, first and second floor, all the science labs. We're trying to do this building in like 4 stages, but the way it looks like the prices are going to probably get in, we're probably going to be able to go 3-stage replacement. So this year we want to do all the classrooms and stuff, what they call area, building A and B, and then the following year we'll hit like the shops and the locker rooms and the weight rooms. So we had budgeted $60,000. I think we're going to be really close to that, maybe even a little bit under. Parking lot repairs up here.
And can I just want to explain, why is there an asterisk, right? So there's an asterisk because we haven't built the fiscal year budget for next year yet. We know that as we go through this, we're still in a situation waiting for the next biennium and then trying to get work done when we can. So the next topic that we're going to talk about is Fund 46, and so we will be talking about whether or not this will fit in our budget or whether or not we can use Fund 46, and so that's some of the discussion. That's how this is all linking together, okay? Next slide. This is the current middle school facility.
Yep. The gym is getting to the point where the recoats and the refloats over time are starting to flake off, so we're going to have to do a sand and repaint. That's a strong estimate to do that work. Unfortunately, to find a contractor to do it this summer, it's probably not going to happen, so it's probably going to go to 2024. We got replacing the upgrading and remodeling the face room down here to a STEM classroom, so we'll be removing all the piping and old cabinetry in there and putting in some new cabinetry and some new plumbing for the fish tanks and stuff like that. Those prices are still kind of being put together. Repair and seal coat parking lot, that's just general maintenance down there. And then we get all the red items there, that's all referendum items that's in the coming out of the referendum dollars. The upgrade HVAC stuff, that's going to be updating a lot of electrical panels down there, bringing in new electrical service because we're going to add, along with the HVAC stuff down there at the gym, we're going to add AC in the gym. 3rd floor is going to be all air conditioned. So we have to update the electrical service to handle that. And then we're also doing some electrical panels. Upgrading the plumbing, that's mostly in the bathrooms. Remodeling, there's some plumbing that we're demoing out that we do not need anymore. Gonna get rid of that, clean that up. Restrooms that we're remodeling, the two bathrooms in the gym lobby, being ADA accessible. We're also on 2nd floor, there's a bathroom we're rearranging there, so it's also, we're taking basically 2 bathrooms, making it into one, so it's 88. And that was strong, that was a high item on our facilities committee meeting. Replacing 2 boilers, to high energy efficient boilers and new pumps. Plus, we'll be updating the building automation controls. And that will be kind of a twofold thing. The new equipment that's going in underneath the referendum dollars, the building automation controls will be paid out of that. The remainder rooms will have to pay out of the regular maintenance budget, or we'll have to use Fund 46 for it. So that's kind of a hybrid in that building and that.
And so when you see all that work, what's in red is being taken care of by the referendum dollars. The contribution of our fiscal year budget would be 30 grand. Mike, do you want to just share one of the things that we learned, because it was the middle school facility that'll be servicing our 4th and 5th graders next year. One of the things that we did cut going into the bid was unit ventilators. That's what kind of changes the air exchange and the heating. How old are they?
Well, they range. The newest ones, unit ventilators, were put in '05. There's a good majority of them that were 1988, and then we have some that we have no idea how old they are, but sometimes in the 60s.
So as an example, today, going back to that conversation, is that we had to cut it. It was something that we had identified. We would like to turn around tomorrow and work with Market and Johnson and say, dedicate the additional dollars and just get all the unit ventilators that are antiquated out and upgraded so that they're all done at the same time. And we believe it'll be within that price point, and they already had an alternate bid. So that's kind of, rather than wait till May, we're going to be moving forward on that.
That's one of those items that we're talking about that we want to add back in and pull some of them out, but now we can put those back in and replace them all.
Then the intermediate school, that'll be transitioning to our middle school, covering grades 6, 7, and 8. This starts with kind of the work that's going on. And in December, we had given you an update with regards to where our fund balance was, how much additional money we were going to have to invest in certain things. And every one of those has come in under budget from what you gave us the latitude to work with. For example, not a lot under, but the student lockers, we had estimated that they would be $125,000. Came in at 125. Band and choir, we're working with Wagner. I think we had estimated, Kyle, it was in the 90s, and it came in 5,000 under. So all of this was kind of already things that we knew was part of the cost of that flip-flop, and that's going to come to about $260,000. And so we have if you go back to that December where we talked about, Sue and I had worked on and thought we had the ability to still maintain our policy on fund balance and spend up to 1.7. The board took a conservative and said, let's stay slightly below $1 million, and if it goes above that, come back to us. And so this is kind of where we're at this time. And then everything else in red are the things that are fit into the bid packages that we've talked about. As you know, asbestos abatement will be probably one of the largest projects and covers a majority of the flooring in that building, which is going to put a larger demand on our teachers who are moving, but also our custodians and timeframes. All right.
And so you can see all the referendum items there, and kind of the thing, replacing the roof, that's kind of the first thing we started with back in, we started talking about this in 2017, 2018, whatever it was that we needed to replace that roof, which kind of started this whole process of really rebuilding the buildings and making some long-range planning. So that's definitely getting done. Our generator, we're up on the roof. This is time we raise the curb, put insulation in, replace any exhaust fan that's from the original building in 1969. We were doing extensive parking lot repair. It's going to be milled off. There's going to be drain tiles putting under the parking lot to have it last longer by getting that moisture out from underneath the parking lot. Putting some curbing there along the football field to control how the water runs off that area. And of course, the asbestos abatement, all the 9-inch tiles. There's some duct work that will be taken care of when we put in new kitchen hoods in that building with fire suppression, and so we'll have a good exhausting system for the kitchen. And of course, when you remove the floor, all the new flooring, so that's probably going to cover 80–90% of the building with all the flooring. Repair the outside walls on the storage part under the overhang, so that'll be a very useful place for storage again. Replacing a lot of water lines, that was one of the things that we had a concern about, that we've had leaks over the years, and the main water line, we couldn't just valve off part of the building, we had to shut the whole building off. But now we'll be able to, when we install this new meter water lines, we'll be able to, if we do have a leak and a branch or something in the wall, we'll be able to zone off part of the building, shut part of the building off, and still be able to hold class, not have to worry about shutting the building down. When they built the buildings years ago, they didn't put many valves in, but we're going to make that happen. Building exterior, we're doing all 3 buildings are going to have the exteriors done, so tuck pointing, ceiling, the leaking mezzanines. That's one that's been on the list for quite a while. And of course, upgrade to plumbing and electrical switch gear and replacing with some more energy efficient boilers.
Can I ask a quick question on this slide? So this is for the summer and fall 2023. Are we replacing the roof this summer, or is that going in next summer?
We'll do it this summer.
This summer? Oh,
I can make it happen.
I thought it was going to be pushed.
Okay.
If they can line that up.
Okay, because I was originally thought we weren't going to be able to get to that this summer.
Because of insulation.
Yeah.
There's still some hope for that.
Okay. Wow.
And after they open up all the bids, then they start to reach out back to the vendors and make sure that their commitments can be made. So that's what they're working on. Mike met this last Friday to start going through the timelines. We still have to get the final roadmap of this, but this is kind of what we're looking at. I just want to underscore also that repair mezzanine may seem it's not a big deal, but what's underneath that mezzanine is an air handler unit. Because it leaks, it's only 2-3 years old. It fried out the electrical computer components, so we had an additional replacement. It also is leaking into the wrestling room, which is a raised floor that's wood that is now rotting. So the goal here is that mezzanine will become rock solid, no longer leaking into the building. It'll be taken care of this year, gives us a year, and if that works, then it allows us to identify a lot of square footage that currently isn't being used. For kind of extra PE, OT, or even wrestling. So it's not some of these things you feel like it's not a big deal, but it cascades into others. And then at the elementary, Mike, kind of more referendum than any grounds and facilities?
Referendum, but some of the stuff leading up to the playground, installation of new playground equipment is the hard surface playground part out there, reseal coating that, where's the cost of demo on the old equipment, and then install a new plastic border around the outside of the new equipment, and of course replacement of bolts and stuff. Over there, there's quite a bit of electrical work in that building because of the old switch gear and electrical panels that are Bulldog brand panels, which you can't get parts for anymore. So if we did have a problem with the panel, we're shut down for a while. So those will be replaced and upgraded, replacing the windows in the 88 wing. And then back when we did the 2018 energy efficient project, we put the new rooftop units on and VAV boxes in, so we got nice climate control in the room, but we abandoned the old unit ventilators in place. So now when they pull these windows out, those will go away, a shelf will be inserted in that spot, and then a new countertop. So that was something that was kind of on hold and now we can take care of that. Of course, replacing some roof sections up there that need that, take care of. And an extensive upgrade to the east and west parking lots. So, one parking lot that was kind of pulled out of the project, we can go back and look at now, was around the 2001 wing, kind of in the playground area, not the hard surface area, but that's all busted up and rocks. The asphalt is elevated enough to like scaling look, and now the pieces are loose, so get that taken care of. The 1963 restrooms, the 1988 restrooms, the main ones, update them, because that was part of the thing. They were aged and not ADA compliant. And of course, upgrading the HVAC for the rest part of the building. We did quite a bit in 2013 and 2018. And now we're going to take care of the 2001 wing. A rooftop unit there, a VAV box. And then there's this part down what I call the 1982 wing, which has kind of a mishmash of equipment that doesn't operate very well together. So.
Hey, really quick again, same question on this one. So there's roof replacement in those sections. Does that cover all of the roof replacement needed for this?
That will take care of everything that's needed over there for now.
For now.
The other stuff was done in 2009.
Right, but that was the only thing that we needed covered, that was covered by the referendum, right? So we're thinking we might be able to get both roofs in those buildings replaced this summer, potentially, if things work out right.
Yeah, it all depends on the timeline of
Again,
the materials and the contractors, but it's,
yeah, I mean, that's great. It's, at least we're, good to hear.
And of course, the same thing over there, keeping the exterior solid, tuck pointing and sealing and
And then just kind of a summary, we have some outdoor things that we take care of each year. And then just a reminder, we had a placeholder for the moving company. Mike's been working with them. We just got an update that we will have Besser Brothers on site the week of June 5th to help us.
They will be on site. We're going to move some stuff internally on the 5th and 6th. And they'll be on the 7th. They will haul the 7 classrooms down to the middle school to store in the commons area. And then the 12th through the 14th is when we're going to do a majority of the moves, and stuff will be staged wherever we can stage it. Might be semi-trailers, might be gyms, so we're still working all the pieces out on that.
So part of this is if you're keeping score and we're able to kind of tally, it comes to about $391,000 that's outside of the referendum that's going to be hitting Mike's budget. And the previous summer to fall was 118. Now, we had known, right, and we talked about this in December, some of these costs are associated with the move and the transformation of intermediate school into a middle school and the middle school into 4-5. So we're still on target with those numbers, but it is obviously an increase in additional dollars that is going to be heading into the work that Mike and his crew will be doing, or that he's working with vendors outside. I did want to share the things that we'll be doing in May. We'll be coming back to you, and this is related to...
Rick, while we're kind of loading this up, is there any, we've been kind of listening, anybody have any questions or comments right now about the slides that were up? Anything? Okay, I just want to make sure. Maybe for a later date. I guess I'm curious to know, like, there's a lot of stuff on this list for this summer. You know, it doesn't have to be tonight, Mike. I'm just curious to know, like, what's going to be coming 2024 that we know we pushed out, if anything. So.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we hope to do between May and June, would be to come back. So this is you have all this, a lot of detail and spreadsheets. What we try to do is just summarize it in those slides. So here's the 118 of things that were covered. But just as you glance, this is part of what you used to create Fund 46. So we had to have a 10-year plan of all the things that we were going to be working on infrastructure, and allowed you to create a trust fund to go into a capital fund. It stayed there for 5 years. It just allowed us to tap into it. And one of the discussions as we come back over the next 6 months is we have some decisions to make. One is how much of Fund 46 that currently sits at, I think, Sue, we're just roughly over $1 million.
A little over $1 million.
Okay. We have a projection to put in this current fiscal year, another $125,000. As you know, interest rates are very high. And so we need to kind of know whether or not we're taking advantage and investing that money in accounts that are getting 4% or 5%, or putting them into CDs. And so one of the things as we come back over the next few months is Mike is doing projects that are hitting $391,000, and you have some money in Fund 46, $1 million. We also then have to link it to our long-term vision, and that's what we're going to end tonight with, is talking about our last board goal for this year was to identify what does the vision of Prescott Public Schools look like for 2035. So as you can see, just the number of things that are coming off the list based on the support of our community. Mike will be updating this. As you can see, things that were part of the project also included both lockers, and then also, which is what we identified for earlier slide for 125. The paving of potentially the bus parking lot. We had bids out there. We're doing a lot of asphalt work. Monarch is on site. This might be a good time for us to consider. That is something that we would like us and the board to revisit. So this is basically the form that we use. Michael could be coming back and updating kind of projects now that are assigned to the referendum, and moving to what are the things that he sees over the next 5 years that might need to be included in the Fund 46, that also will dovetail into what are the extracurricular interior facilities and green space. Okay. Sue, I wanted to show, any questions about kind of the Fund 46 and how that was set up?
Okay, Rick, I gotta ask, are we on item C right now, or are we still on item B?
Nope, we're still on C, Fund 46.
Okay, well.
And I'm gonna have, I told you it all ran together.
Well, yeah, I know, I just gotta know where I'm at in here.
We got Mike's stuff, summer work. Yes, now we're kind of transitioning, segue into Fund 46.
Okay,
So we are on C.
So now we're on item C, all right.
All right. All right. Here is just an update of kind of where the money is currently sitting within BMO checking. We have CDs. Currently, the CDs, we have $250,000 at, is it 4.3%? So one of the things that Sue and I will want kind of direction on is, one of the things that you might want to do is kind of set up CDs that are laddered. And so the idea is that currently interest rates are very high. Concerns about that may not last, especially if we hit a recession. So how do we generate moving revenue into this fund as we're making decisions, but we also want to have some of it be liquid and flexible so that we can use it in case we run into fiscal challenges over the next 6 months. Currently, we have received or earned about $13,800 in interest. And was that for this year?
Yeah, this fiscal year.
This fiscal year. Currently, this is, again, just using debits and credits, we are sitting at slightly over 1,092,000. And we have the fiscal year, we are looking to put in 125. We wait to the end of the year to make sure that we're not short in any other parts of the organization. In case if we put it in there, then it's only for capital. It allows us not to overspend, but it's the other thing that we will be coming back is we can put that money in. I think we have there's a little grace period after June 30th, but for the sake of a financial year, it's June 30th. But if we're going to put it into Fund 46 and turn around and give it right back to Mike to finish a project that's going to cost, right? It might not be worth the paperwork to do that. So, Sue, any comments?
That's why that $34,000 transaction instead of waiting to see which way that's going to go before we transfer it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just a question. So the 125,000, is that left over mainly from the maintenance budget and capital budget, kind of those two combined, or is maintenance not part of that?
It was its own budget line item that was approved.
From last year's budget, right? Yeah. Yep.
So every year we've started to put, and it had been around 25,000, but this is its own budget line. But we just wanted to let you know that it's still out there. We can still transfer it. But we want to, over the next 2 months, come back to you and say, is it wise? Because it's really, may have to come back and
I think
go
we
specifically.
budgeted that high because we were uncertain. Was it because we weren't certain if the referendum was going to pass? We needed to have some extra money in case we needed it. So, all right.
Okay. So we'll be coming back and giving you an update, but I just wanted to let you know that you're at slightly over 1 million. Again, that money can be used for anything that was on that long list that Mike had, and now we can start adding. And as long as you add it and approve it at the board, then on an annual basis, the money in this trust fund can be used for those board-approved projects moving forward.
Any questions from anyone here? There's a lot of numbers. We're going to talk about that 34, that 34K there. Is that on the list of things that we're going to be discussing?
We'll be coming back.
Yeah, okay.
We have between now and June.
Okay.
All right. So
what does that mean? Are we
ready for D?
We're on item D now?
Yes.
Before we move on, we're good? No other questions on this stuff? Everybody's glossed over?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on to a different subject, but similar. Item D, stipend for staff to cover extra work for the building flip-flop.
Okay. And this is somewhat unique, and you learn by doing, right? And so many of our staff have had to move buildings. Obviously, we had in 2016, we had staff moving from the old high school into this one. What was different at that time is we had full-staffed custodians. We were fully staffed during the summer at that time. We were also moving from one building into a new building. We also didn't have as much money as we did and do now. We have moved third grade, and that third grade kind of moved. But this year, one of the things that we're struggling with is that staff are going to be in a position that on June 5th, we have students up through, I think, the 1st of June, 2nd of June, and then we have one day on Friday to exit, and then Monday, Mike will be moving multiple rooms into either a staging area or we have midweek. We are currently short custodians, so we don't have as many custodians that can help our staff. We have a very tight window of when the staff have to be done. A lot of times we've been able to allow people to do it intermittently throughout the summer, or they did it during our kind of closeout or in August to unpack. Conversely, in August, we are going to be doing all of that work that you just saw across all of our buildings. The intermediate school will be losing water electricity, and 100% of its parking lot. All of that has to be redone before we can get the new stuff back, and 80% of the flooring is being replaced. So we are going to be very tight. It means that we don't have the ability for our staff or to use some of our back-to-school hours, the opportunity to cover. It also, we have slightly over 100 full-time licensed staff. This will impact 46 of our licensed staff teachers. The magnitude of that, the shortness and the tightness of it, we've been working on this with Sue and Chantel from HR, and we are would like to propose that we set aside $14,000 to address the time or excess time that our licensed teachers are putting in above and beyond their workday, that would be administered in August as stipends. Now, the stipends will vary slightly. The principals, Mr. Igo and Michael Kosmowski, have identified, obviously, it is very different to pack up an art class versus moving, let's say, a speech and language class. And so they have identified up to, what we're looking at is kind of car repair, setting up a maximum cap of 10 hours. And then differentiated some of that, but we would have that $14,000 set aside to cover the 46 staff that would be distributed, again, in September after the move is executed.
Any questions? Any comments?
I would just say this was something that we talked about from the beginning.
Yeah.
We talked about switching classrooms as the workload that this will put on staff. So I'm happy to see that we've been able to find some way to help pay teachers for that extra work. Not just teachers, but all the staff involved, so.
Rick, is this going to come out of this year's fiscal budget, or are we looking at, this is going to be happening in June?
We would execute it in September, so it's kind of fiscal year 2024.
Okay, so it's going to be next year.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. All right. Also, it's one day. It sounds like you got one kind of.
Well, I hope they don't do it all in one day, but yes, they have very limited windows,
time,
but yes.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. And that's part of getting direction from you, allows us to continue to build a budget that'll get adopted in October of '23, but we will be organizing that 14,000 set aside for that.
All right. We'll move on to item E, discuss parameters for the 23-24 budget and salary schedules.
Yes.
Your favorite topic here, the financial cliff.
All right. So I did it in my introduction to these information discussion. It's kind of a zipper, if you will. We're putting this together. As I mentioned, it is a Tetris model here. Let me get, it'd be good if I started at the beginning. All right, the biggest concern is that public education and the way it is currently funded in the state of Wisconsin is that we are coming off a pandemic. We're coming off where federal dollars covered the additional costs for everything that we have spent since March of 2020, the additional one-to-one, computers, the leases, the additional interventionists, another day of mental health. All of those were additional costs, much less for the cleaning supplies and the additional mitigation steps that took place. The challenge for Sue, and we wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't for Sue. And I mean that in a good way, Sue. We are receiving dollars and have received 100% of our ESSER dollars, but they get billed for things all the way back to 2020. In addition, as that money comes in, it has all been allocated and spent. We have no additional dollars heading into next year. At that time, coming out of that, the Wisconsin legislature said, since you had federal dollars, we will not increase the per pupil contribution. The difficulty is, you know what happened to costs. You know what happened to CPI. Food costs have gone up. Fuel costs have gone up. Electricity has gone up. Heat has gone up. Fuel has gone up. In addition, historically, in 2008, the legislature used to tie per pupil increases to the consumer price index. That was decoupled in 2008. What that means is that Prescott today, every district in the state would be receiving $3,100 per pupil more in today's dollars than we received in 2008. What that means, as we've been funded, is on the lower level of that line graph. If we had been funded based on CPI, it would follow the blue line. For Prescott Public Schools, that means that our revenue incoming would be $4 million a year higher than what we currently are receiving. We budget around 17.4. We would be budgeting around 21.4. Think about what that lack or decoupling has meant for our community. We are blessed that our community stands up and has approved for us on a referendum for infrastructure. We've had support around operating, but those are going to be difficult business models to sustain unless our legislatures stand up. I have no doubt that our community would not allow our representatives not to support the educators and the staff of the Prescott Public Schools serving its youth and its future. In addition, here is the per pupil. We used to, in 2002, be in the top 11% of the national average of the amount of money per pupil that was allocated to run our businesses, pay our salaries, which is now 86% of our budget. We're a people business, working with students and future leaders. We are now at the 25th. We are 5% below what this nation is paying, which creates a fiscal cliff. These elevators are going in two different directions. On the left-hand side, because there has been no increase in per pupil for 21-22 and now for this school year, I've mentioned what are the things that have increased in cost. That elevator continues to go up, and we have received $830,000 in ESSER dollars to cover some of that, which now is gone. And now we're going to share with you what we would like to propose with regards to a budget for next year, investing in our staff who continue to provide some of the best education in the middle border, have increased the test scores to be in the top, is it 9%, Michael, for overall achievement status?
Top 11 and top 9% in growth.
Okay, we have been in the top 15. So we're status and growth is up at the top. I believe, Sue and I have been working on this, that it's important for us to signal to our staff at a time when the renewal commitments that we want our high qualified and dedicated staff here to stay with us. In order to do that, we are proposing a 4% salary increase across the board. Ultimately, when you increase salary, it also increases benefits, the amount or proportion that would then go to WRS, Social Security, healthcare. The overall package would be 5.4%. What you look at is that our current budget this year is the top row. When you look at salary and benefits for Fund 10 and 27, this includes salary and benefits, it's $15 million. Again, our overall budget is 17.3. Next year, with the 4% across the board, You see an increase of $400,000 in benefits. You see a $400,000 increase in hourly salary. That would mean that our next year's expenditure would now be at $15.8 million. That means we go from the gray pie graph is the amount of money that we have a levy cap. We can't get more money unless we get more money per pupil or we go to our community.
Or increase enrollment.
Or increase enrollment. And the good news for us is that we're steady in enrollment, but we're not increasing. Around our community, there are subdivisions that are going in with 6 phases, but the economy has slowed that progression. They are currently one of the biggest subdivisions is 6 phases, 50 homes, all family homes, but they have stopped at phase 2. And I think with interest rates the way they are, there won't be any probably progress on that. Pierce County has had an increase of 4% in homes and influx, and we are part of Pierce County. So overall, our picture here in Prescott at least is stable, but it's not going up. Per pupil has been flat. We won't know till summer what the overall agreement is by the legislature. Sue and I have worked the numbers. In order to just be flat on revenue, we need the legislature to commit $615 increase per pupil to make sure that our revenue stays the same for 2024 as it was for the fiscal year 2023. The unfortunate piece is that the governor's budget is across the 2 years. The first step increase is $350 per student. Increase. That is less than the $615 that we know. So what that means is, by definition, here's the bar graph that depicts in blue is the amount of money in our budget that is going to salaries and benefits. And again, we are an organization that is personnel specific based on the teachers and positions that we have. The red bar is other. Other includes the work that Mike does for facilities. It's the equipment. It's the cleaning supplies. It's the repairs. In addition, it is the materials and curriculum and supplies that goes into every classroom. Sue and I, Chantel and HR, and the administrative team have met. We've been looking at these numbers. We believe that with the $800,000 drop, and if you take off and you add in the $800,000 of 4% would provide, we would be at 15.827. We can't go higher because there's a levy cap. Changes enrollment's going to be steady. It can change if we go for a referendum. We didn't go for a referendum. So it is going to be incumbent on our legislature to move us forward. We are hedging our bet. Sue and I are putting in basically a $350 increase, and that's what gets us to $16,900,000. Kind of done a different way is just kind of the 2 graphs is that our levy cap, the amount of revenue that we can have come in, unless that law changed, and I don't see that changing. I see per pupil changing before I see the levy cap change. You can see that we're getting closer and squeezing out the other. So how does one come back and ask the board to go ahead with this? And part of it is that this is the time when every district in the state is announcing whether or not they're moving forward with salary adjustments or holding steady. We've been working with the 39 districts in CISA 11, the middle border, and following, obviously, what other districts are doing. There are two thoughts or two opinions. One is to give out letters of intent that we are going to renew you and we want you back, but we're going to hold until the legislature makes a decision.
Hold announcing the salary.
Salary, thank you. We believe that we would lose in that equation, both in the morale and the support and the recognition of the work across the board that every person in this organization, from our bus drivers, food service, and I'm going to forget somebody and I apologize, custodians, our aides, our licensed staff, the district office. And therefore, Sue and I believe that, yes, it will be, at the initial, it looks as if we're going from 2.3, and it's not completely discretionary funds. These are electric, gas, fuel, and supplies, right? These are true costs. However, we are at a place where we ended last year with $6.5 million in a fund balance. Sue cautioned me, right, was all 6.5 liquid. How much cash did we have?
4.4.
Okay. So basically 2/3 of the fund balance was in cash. And so obviously we don't want to go crazy, but we do believe that it would be a great recognition of the work that our staff has done, both in the academic realm and also for the mental health and social emotional health that we've been given to our students. So at this point, just wanted to share that it would be the administrative and Sue's recommendation that she and I have 6 months to continue to work on other areas and see what's coming in from the legislature to finalize a budget. We don't have 6 months to retain and recruit people. And we believe that it would send a strong signal to our community and a strong signal to our staff if we were to move forward with this model so that we could get our salaries on the contracts out to our teachers by May 15th as required by statute. Any questions?
Take a drink of water. Pat, any questions?
No questions. You looking for questions?
Comments, questions, yeah, anything.
We talked about this as, as a group, fully support, this decision. There certainly is the unknown. The bigger risk is not doing anything. I think in our opinion, our administrative team has put the district in a great spot to be able to make some of these tough calls and decisions, and I am in support of doing this now.
Tanya?
Yeah, echoing Pat, but also adding that right now we, across, districts, states, we're seeing that it is harder and harder to keep teachers in the profession, keep veteran teachers in the profession. We need our veteran teachers, and I think that kind of holding back on announcing the salary and stuff is just not the way to go with our staff. I think we have a healthy fund balance. If we need to, that's why we have these kinds of things there. But I think our staff deserve this. We need to keep and maintain the staff that we have. And I hear you loud and clear, really cautioning us that we can afford this right now. And you can predict that we can afford this in the short term because we've been financially mindful and been really purposeful about saving money and putting things aside. But this is not something that, as a community, we can sustain too far in the future without an increase in per pupil funding from the state level legislation. So advocacy work, super important from everybody in this community, including us and our staff, as much as we can, but I think this is well-deserved and needed.
Steve?
I will have to abstain from any direct discussion relative to this due to the fact that it is encompassing licensed staff.
Vicki?
Yeah, I think for our teachers to know ahead of time that we value them and we want to keep them here. We want to let them know that we're trying the best that we can and putting them, I guess, first in line so that we can go into next year with hopefully maintaining all of our teachers and not needing to go look around. Our staff is really important. The public, our community has told us that, we need to keep our good teachers. So I think if you can work this in and we just, we have to work hard on advocacy for our district, all the districts in the state. I mean, we need to get our community involved. We need to be involved because teachers are unfortunately leaving the profession and we need to hold on to the ones we have.
Can I just add one thing or clarification? So we've used the word teacher a lot. Really, we're talking about licensed staff. And so that includes our counselors, our school psychologists, our teachers. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that. Especially people in the community, that we're not just talking about our teachers that are in the classroom day to day with our kids, but all of the other licensed professionals within our district that are there for our students and helping us move forward.
That's where you come in handy, Tanya.
Yeah.
It's not my verbiage, so yes, thank you.
Tanya just has extra words to use.
I did not work today.
Words.
I already warned everyone.
Ryan, do you have any words?
No, I agree with Tanya and Vicky, but no real comment.
Rick, I'm gonna hit this different way here. So we do this. Let's just say we move forward with this plan and budget. There's gonna have to be some. We're hedging our bet, right? So the state doesn't. Let's just say, worst case scenario, state doesn't give us as much as we need. We're gonna dip. We might have to end up dipping into our general fund in next year, right?
You might have an unbalanced budget.
And then,
or cuts. Yeah.
Correct, right? But then looking past next year, there's going to have to be some decisions made based on like how much do we give for next year's increase. And we have a kind of a salary structure, that we've been kind of talking through for the licensed staff. But obviously this is not sustainable unless we either get more money from the state to help cover it, or the other option is we have to start leveling off the salaries. That's another option. Or C, it's asking for more money from the community. And am I missing anything there? Is that kind of, did I hit it or
cutting programs?
Our cutting, our cutting.
Which is last.
Cutting programs, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about here. We're basically saying we can't sustain what we're trying to do here because the state is just not giving us funding, and other communities are doing it. I'm just pointing it out there because other communities have had successful referendums in the past year to dedicate more money towards salaries and operational expenses, and it has to be said now because that could be an avenue that we have to look at within the next couple of years, and I want to just lay it out there now because it's a direction we're headed. Unless we get a lot more students influx to raise our bottom line, or the state aid starts covering their end, and they're not covering their end bottom line. So we're going to have some tough decisions in the next couple of years. Welcome aboard, Helen. So I wanted to throw that out there. So.
No, I think you're spot on. It's not a business model that can work. We're not alone, and it's happening around all of us. As you look in the paper and see what districts are already projecting for shortfalls, New Richmond already has identified a deficit of $2.6 million. So these are real numbers. It impacts programs, people, and teachers. I have great faith in the Prescott community, and I don't think the Prescott community would allow the legislature to get away with this. And remember that by not giving additional dollars per pupil, Sue, how much money does the state government have in surplus right now?
Billions.
$7 billion on the back of what I would say is on students' communities, and teachers. Just to let you know, as we move forward, we did talk about licensed teachers. This then would be in our model being for all of our hourly employees. I'll show an example of what this will look like. It is in draft form. We will come back in May to get a formal approval. Couple examples. So remember, I see, and we'll share the handout. I just want to make sure that it is draft.
Make it bigger.
Oh yeah, make it bigger. Couple things. One of the things that the school board identified that it would like to be at the 50th percentile or higher among salaries. In CISA 11 this year, the average salary starting teacher was $41,500. Based on this model, the starting salary next year in Prescott Public Schools, because we no longer have a step A for new hires, would be $42,800. Couple things that we're looking at is that the average increase for staff would be about $2,100. Over the last few years, as you know, in 2018, each step was about $685. Through COVID, both on either stipends, hero pay, and increasing last year, all licensed staff had a double step. What we are proposing, we still have to work out the details. We're working with mainly about efficiency and work. Less work to get to the same outcome. So there's a couple things that we still have to proof on this, but the high-end scale would go from $74,000 to $77,000. Obviously, our staff are distributed across that. We do have pay increases for longevity. We are using a rounding factor so that the rounding factor does keep all the numbers clean. We do that for data entry and for identifying errors in our system. We are proposing, as we move forward, that what we may do is keep people in their same step. If they change lanes, that would be granted, but we put the 4% into the salary schedule. This will allow us to be able to be more efficient, triple check our numbers before we get the contracts out by May. So the overall increase for the individual staff member is 5.4 total package, as well as having the contract with their salary printed on it starting on May 15th.
Before you switch slides, I just want to do my just recognize that we have the master's plus 30 level, and we don't have anything beyond that, but we do have individuals within our district that are required to have a specialist degree in order to have their jobs or their license. And so I find value, and many other districts do this, in adding either an extra lane, or I see many districts do like a stipend for required specialist degree in order to perform their job duties and maintain their license. And I think the doctor can fall within there too.
Anything else, Rick?
Nope.
Questions on this? Also, I think we can move on. Rick, is that it for D? Is there anything else in here? You got a lot of stuff here, so I'm just making sure we're not moving. All right, we're moving on. Item F is discuss a healthcare contract with Health Partners.
Okay. We were hoping for a little bit better news, but at least it fits within the parameters that we've done. Health Partners has told us that our renewal premium is going to hit our cap. We had negotiated a 3-year contract. Our cap is a 7% increase. They are renewing us at 7%. We did go back to them to see if we could get a different, currently we have 2 plans that are available to personnel, not just individual and family, but a high deductible plan and an Affordable Care Act plan. They weren't willing to do that. We did offer what we have done historically is extend our contract for an additional year, and if they would extend it an additional year, we were looking for them to shave off next year's cap down 2%. That did not go either. They are not willing to extend, and we're going to be capped at 9%. If we didn't have the cap, some districts around us in the middle border have just received their updates, and they're going up over 12% on health care. So the good news is we had a cap. The bad news is, unfortunately, unlike last year, it is going to hit the cap. That is calculated in all the numbers that you already saw. So when we calculated the salary and benefits, it's including the 7% increase into our calculations, correct?
And just a quick summary here, or reminder, is last year we had negotiated a 3-year contract, and it was going to go, predicted that it would not go, well, we agreed that it would not go up more than 7% year 2, and then it was another 2% increase year 3. And so in both those situations, it's going to be fully at what they promised us would be the gap.
Right.
So Rick, next year, the 23-24 school year is our last year for this contract?
Correct.
So plan is that, are we going to shop that out again?
So there's, we have time. So Chantel is working. There's a couple things we're exploring. One of the things that gives me trepidation is that we went to, for dental, we are self-insured. Hudson is one district that is self-insured. Typically, you see self-insured around health care to be bigger districts. Districts our size typically don't do it, but Osceola just moved to, they're a little bit bigger than us, but in our kind of student range, have moved to a self-funded model, and I believe Spring Valley. And so Sue, myself, and Chantel are going to continue to work on, is that an option? And you have to, basically, you're getting reinsurance for emergency cases when you have, somebody has a transplant or cancer and things like that, and it blows through. So it's a complicated thing. Otherwise, we might have to shop, or we negotiate with health partners. The hardest thing to do is to switch or propose a new doctor or new, and I know that Roger told me about 50 meetings when you went from the previous vendor to health partners. So it won't be taken lightly. It will be something that we have to consider, but we have a year to kind of come back and work with you on that.
All right, anything else?
Well, I just think it's a benefit to look around. I think if you stick with someone and keep sticking with that same someone over and over again, you see price increases and all of that, and you don't necessarily think it's a big increase, and eventually, all of a sudden, you realize it is. So I think it's definitely to our benefit to look around and see if there is anything that is better. If not, then we go with what we have, but I think we need to always, every so often, take a look at it. So I'm glad that we're doing that.
Fun stuff. All right, we'll move on to the last item of info and discussion, Prescott Vision 2033 conceptual design of community engagement process.
So we're going both ways. You guys get to help solidify this. I'm going to ask Michael Kozmowski to kind of join me. In August of 23, we identified 5 primary. Mike and Sue, if you would like to go, you are more than welcome. We won't hold it against you. Thank you very much for your work. They have been burning the midnight candle with me to be able to get you all that information, so thank you. You had asked for us to kind of look at a strategic facility plan that went beyond a year-to-year plan. We've talked about Fund 46. Fund 46 can't be spent 3 different ways. It has to be spent based on priorities, and it has to be spent based on what we believe should be a comprehensive engagement with our community to say, what does the next 10 years look like? And what do we want Prescott Public Schools to deliver academically, program-wise, and then also facility-wise? And those facilities are being taken care of now for the infrastructure. We have to make sure that it works for the way that we teach, the learning styles, as well as the work experience for teachers. Think of STEM, and think about how that is a different program that's been implemented, and how we are infusing that in buildings that were built before STEM was a vision. Think about the one-to-one that you have with regards to computers. So those are some of the things that we wanted to talk about. This is a 30,000-foot level discussion. We've met with TeamWorks. The administrative team has been identifying 3 areas that we believe we would like to engage in, and then come back with how do we get to this vision that's being defined by having stakeholder and interested party input. So TeamWorks has outlined for us opportunity that if the administrative team has identified the right questions in the right areas, we would come back to you next month with a guiding change document and more details about how do you get this done, how do you engage the community, where, when. This is just to say, do we have the right thing on the radar, okay? So, Michael, I'm going to turn it over to teaching and learning and some of the things that we've already talked about, but I think it's important for our community to hear about some of the progress that's occurred over the last few years in Prescott.
Yeah, exciting times. You know, we talk about the next 10 years plus, and I think some of that obviously is based on the groundwork that we've laid over the last 10 years. So I'm not going to read everything off the slide, but some of the big things is, you know, PLCs, professional learning communities, were introduced in the school district about the year 2010. And we kind of floundered for a while until we created and implemented the PLC leadership team as a shared leadership model. And we have about 31 staff that get together once a month, and then two full days in the summer to really set out the groundwork of what's our professional development for the year, where are the areas that we need to improve in, and then what are the shifts that we're going to have in both our teaching and our learning models. And again, after going to some PLC at Work conferences, that's when we really started talking about something we've discussed a little bit, a School D. And what is School D? And School D is a utopian school that I first heard about through Anthony Muhammad. And I brought that model, or that discussion, back to our PLC leaders in 2017. And for the next 3 years after that, we refined our definition of what does that look like, and what pieces and parts do all our stakeholders have in that. And some of the outcomes we're already seeing from that. Obviously, the Collaboration Mondays, that came out of those discussions and that model of our desired daily experience for our students and our staff. And that's what led us in that model. And again, it wasn't something that we even thought about 5 years ago. Other outcomes, as Dr. Spruza said, we're top 9% in growth, top 11% in overall academics as a district. And some of our schools are even higher than that. Number 1 in the Middle Board Conference in almost every category and every grade level in achievement, and then a very high graduation rate. So again, some of these things we're already moving towards, and it's just where do we want to go in this vision and in this path together. And again, just that interdependency that we have with each other and collaboration to meet the needs of all students is really our first big step in this process, and I think we have several large steps to take, but again, we're on our way.
So obviously, there's challenges and there's opportunities. In 2014, I believe you did kind of an environmental scan, and Steve was part of, I think might even chaired one of the committees, and now we're getting to a point where we're completing on that vision from 2014. Right now, some of the challenges we've already talked about. We're not declining, but we have flat enrollment. We know that we have a mix of buildings, from this building that's a little bit more modern, built in 2016, to buildings that were from 1950 and updated 1963 and 1969. It's aging, but we've already started to invest in that, but we also saw that we're about to spend $83,000 on this facility that is no longer really new. We talked about the financial cliff, so I won't go into all the details. You can rewind this tape and play that over. But there's opportunities, and if you think about the enrollment possibilities within our community, there's a lot of things that draw people to Prescott. If you look at what the Chamber of Commerce, our current city council has done, there's a lot of new things, signs going up. People are finding this to be a place that they want to come visit, they want to be part of, and there's some housing developments that are going up. Obviously, it's paused due to the economy. There's partnerships for the city. We have Vicki, who is partnering with some of the green space and paths. We've talked about the Cooley River, so there's some synergies there, and some intergovernmental partnerships that I see as continuing to blossom. In addition, we know that the old high school is large enough to accommodate grades 4 through 8. It's not specifically designed yet like that, but it is something that you could consider. And so when you think about the graph of saying salaries are going up, we have a levy cap, we are going to have a decision at some point about from 10 years from now, by 2035, what do the buildings look like? What buildings are still with us, and then to be able to articulate that. And it's going to take a community effort to do that strategically together. A lot of people say it was good enough for me. Michael, take it over.
Yeah, so I asked Dr. Spiguza for a picture from when he was in high school.
It's about the size I was.
This slide really is talking about the difference between accumulated design versus intentional design. And accumulated is sort of like, we have this environment, we have our schools, and what can we do to enhance or maybe change the programming to fit that environment, because that's what we currently have. Or are we going to look at it more strategically and look at intentional design? And what are we going to have to change in order to meet that desired learning experience? So starting with that at the beginning of what do we want the learning experience to be for our students and the working experience for our staff, and then intentionally design things around that versus the opposite, which we have done over the years, is how can we make this work in the space that we have. It's difficult to grow in places that have constraints that are based on a past experience. Sometimes our past successes are poor predictors of our future success because that future has changed. And here are just some of the major changes that have happened in the past 10 years in education. All the educational research from John Hattie and Marzano, and structured literacy with the science of reading that's coming out. You can see all the 4 core areas and the encore areas have had major shifts in what their focus really is on. And then, as Dr. Spruza talked about, some of the technology that we have, one-to-one devices at the secondary. We have Chrome cards in grades 2 through 5, iPads, and now the big scary thing that is in the news all the time, artificial intelligence. And what are we using it for? It's sort of like when the iPhone came out, and every kid's going to Google every answer. Now every kid's going to have a computer write everything for them. So versus trying to keep that at arm's length, just how do we embrace that and how do we bring that into the learning experience? So again, those are major things that have shifted from when we were in school. One of the things we talk about as we started to define schools A, B, C, and D is sort of this continuum where teachers are responsible for student success versus teachers are responsible for the students or helping them to succeed. And you can kind of see this progression of model from school A, where we had the curriculum, the teacher was the master of that curriculum, and they delivered it to the students. And based on your ability, either you learned it or you didn't. All the way over to school D now, where there's this play between the students, the teacher, the curriculum. There's this interdependency and collaboration that has to happen. We've talked about the complexity of teaching and learning, those interactions between them, and that, again, how does that relate back to that daily desired experience? And again, it's not an experience that many of us have had. So it's very difficult sometimes to think of the future, but as the famous quote from Abraham Lincoln says, the best way to predict the future is to build it. So can we build it together?
And I think one of the things that we would like to do is internally, this is what a lot of our PLC leadership team and our staff have been working on. We've kind of talked about how we're modifying, and this is our academic model. We know that we need a work session with the board so that you better understand the work that's going on inside our classrooms, and then for us to take this up and out, to make sure that our families fully understand what we've been doing in our curriculum, how classes have changed and instructional delivery has changed, and then from our families to get that out to the community. And so we have, for the last many years, but Michael's been working with staff every August and continuing to do that, and we will have a piece in our Cardinal Connection to start to articulate that and then look for touch points to work with our families to better do that. So, Michael, you want to talk about student experience in school CD?
Yeah, so, as we refined over those 3 years that we talked about schools, C&D, we didn't spend a lot of time talking about schools at A&D. We really wanted to focus on the school we wanted to be in, or the school we wanted to become. And from the student perspective, what would that sound like, look like, feel like in the classroom, and then what would that environment look like? With flexible learning areas, and we'd have meditation as part of our physical environment, because we know that social emotional learning is tied greatly to academic success. But what does that really feel like for a student in that class? And talk about having perseverance and being able to problem solve and use collaborative discussion in order to lead yourself to a higher level of learning. And that's really what we're trying to get for our students. And how does that, one, how do we communicate that to students? And then, again, where are opportunities for students to have choice and voice in the classroom and in what they're learning? And then just the flip side of that is the teacher experience. So what and how will we as teachers have to work differently in order to be able to deliver on that promise for our students and that daily desired experience that we have. And this is really what we focused a lot of our energy on, and this is where that proposal of Collaboration Monday came from. Is that if we really are going to change the way that we do and talk about students and serve all students, and all meaning all students, then we need that time as professionals to learn from each other. And I would commend the board for sticking your neck out and having us pilot that, and now making that just part of the way that we operate in the Prescott School District. I still have other districts calling me and asking me about that process and how do we get there. And I said, well, do you have 6 years? Because it really takes that long to really build that capacity within the PLC leadership team and then the teachers across the district to be willing to take that leap of faith with us, and that we're going to support you along the way. So again, some of those things that I talked about when we talked about Collaboration Monday, you'll see are up here as well.
And so as we get to the end, we'll be talking about, remember, this is about a vision of 2035. So when you start to talk about what is the daily desired experience, we want our community and our families to be part of that. So we want to first inform and educate where we are, and then start to talk about what is it going to look like over the next decade. Michael's done an outstanding job of getting teacher voice and student voice, collecting that information. We want to expand that even within our district, and we'll be talking about how we would set that up. And if we're on the right track, we'll come back with the actual details and the logistics of how that would occur. So some of the benefits of the current model and some challenges. Michael.
Right, so some of those big benefits is, really having that, again, student choice and voice, and what does that mean? But really that increased complexity of thinking when we talk about depth of knowledge. If we want the learning experience that implores students to think deeply, they need to work collaboratively to solve real world problems, productive struggle, to build their own knowledge. Then we have to talk about how are we intentionally designing those learning experiences, and the challenges, do those learning spaces limit us, and what do those spaces need to look like if they are going to support this model as well. Some of the biggest challenges is that we all have our own memories of how school was, and it was good enough for me, but again, the world has changed. It's changing all the time, and it's changed from 10 years ago. So again, how are we changing and keeping up with that so that our youth are able to go out there and be productive, contributing members of society and leaders, which is our vision for our students, that they are the future leaders, and are we preparing them to be those future leaders, and where are the areas that we can have a greater impact on that.
So this is our strategic directives that the board identified in March of 2020. The first 3 strategic directions really talk about the integrated educational opportunities, that we want to maximize the outcomes for students. We've been talking about the work that's been done. We want to make sure now that that's communicated out to the group, right? We are a district that's committed to lifelong learning, and we want to make sure that students are successful when they leave us, and we want to make sure that we do that by engaging our families, students, and then the greater community. But there's a hiccup here, is that as we morph in our programming, we have to make sure that the learning environment and work environment mirrors what we're trying to accomplish. And so that is part of what I heard you as a board saying it's going to cost additional money, and we gave an example of the future middle school that's at the intermediate. We identified that we would in December, we were thinking about moving the facility and grounds out of the back end, building a new garage, and creating 3 rooms from a computer lab, a design lab, and a classroom. And you said, let's hold, let's get students into the right grades and the right buildings. But it's not the only priority. There are other things that are pressing, either on Fund 46 or extracurricular, that we knew were coming down the road. So what we've identified is that we believe that we want to continue to work on our vision and make sure that we engage, not just internally, but now get out and work with our students and families to better understand, are we delivering the academic programs that they want and see that the students will need, and get some feedback and come back with options for the board. So that would take care of strategic direction 1 and 2. Strategic direction 4 is, does and are the physical classrooms, the learning environment, inviting enough and allowing us to deliver on artificial intelligence? Working with computers, working with large groups, small groups, flexible seating, collaborative projects. And so what we're looking at is, does the facility either enhance or kind of suppress the outcomes for our students, as well as interfere with the teacher's work environment? And then third is the extracurricular activities. We know that some students, that is the hook. That's what drives them. That's what gets them here. However, as an organization, the reason we exist is about academic learning. In the big A, with regards to social, emotional, physical, and wellness. So initially, this is some of the feedback we would like from you as we come back next month, is that we've identified that these would be the 3 big drivers of working with our community to articulate by 2035 what are the academic programs and what is the daily desired experience with regards to academic experiences from 4K up through high school. Examples, like what does the program of study look like at the high school? How does it get designed? Right now, we give teachers a lot of agency to suggest new courses. We look at whether or not students vote with their feet. But we need probably other feedback loops of parents and even students to tell us, right, Ryan, to say, are we delivering on the programs that they see they want? Next, does our physical learning environments match that? We were thinking initially that we would have 3 different trains, 3 different groups talking about this. The more we talked as an administrative team and talked with TeamWorks, the concern we had was that we would have 3 people working potentially in isolation come back and try to overlap, and we saw that the outcome more than likely would be a tug of war at best, or civil war at worst. And so the proposal that we're suggesting, and you'll see now kind of the timelines and the way that we would do the engagement, is that we would select and recruit interested parties to participate in addressing the academic experience, the learning environment, and the extracurricular green spaces in and outside concurrently, because we only have one budget, and we want to make sure that the prioritization and the discussion is always done within those fence posts. So let me pause and just get feedback on, have we identified, is anything missing with what we're trying to identify around Vision 2035, that we would engage our community about the academic, the learning environment, and the extracurricular?
Board, any comments here? Do you want me to go down the line here, or anybody have any initial thoughts?
Why is it Vision 2035?
We're trying to say we want to have it long-term of where we're going to be, and then incrementally we'll come back and say, how do we get there? What would be the mileposts to get there? If you think about the last...
I've come from, about 10 years,
to
12 years, we just pick the number?
It's strategic. The branding people told us 35 rhymed with more things than 33. It was the midpoint of the 30s. Those are the main reasons. So it used to be 2033. The last one started in 2014. We're right now at 2033. So, but good catch.
Not such a dumb question.
No. But my graphic designers and school branding thought the 35 rolled off the tongue better. But it is a good thing, is we can't get to 2035 in a minute, right? So we would be saying, here are what we would like to be in 5 years from now.
So,
10 years from now.
Board, I'm just going to speak and you just jump in here if you disagree with me, but I'm wondering if this should be something that we dive into as a separate topic and not dive into it here at this meeting. I mean, we're pushing 2.5 hours right now. I'm feeling burnout from everybody, including myself.
You guys should schedule a work session.
Right.
Soon.
So we will make sure.
I saw that face.
I mean, I think Mike is right. There's a lot of stuff to unpack here. And with Helen joining us, I think Helen really needs to be involved in this. Steve is leaving. I think we need Helen's input on this before we make any sort of decision as to what we're going to do, how we're going to do this. I know we talked about it before, but with Steve leaving, Helen needs to be involved in this.
It feels like a workshop. Like, we should pack this into a workshop and
I agree with Vicki.
And Rick, I mean, what are you looking for from us tonight?
Nope, and that's exactly what I wanted, is if we have the right questions, and my guess is that we need to have a work session. What I'll leave you with is that there are 2 timelines, and it really kind of coincides with points that you made about, do we have the funds in Fund 46? If the legislature this summer doesn't raise its per pupil funding, we may have to go out for support of our community. And so if we're going to ask for support financially, again, from our community, I think we have to start with, what does the community want this district to look like in the 2030s? And it means, what does it look like academically? What does it look like when you get in a classroom? And what does it look like with regards to extracurricular activities, indoor, outdoor, across the 40 acres that we now oversee? And part of it is, we talked a little bit about Giddy Up. And so one of these models talks about trying to complete this by fall 2024. Is that fast enough, or is that too long? But you see the engagement of students, staff, family, and community. And then the other one tries to get it done by 2023. And I think that's where you would want a work session to start talking about, how do you get there?
What, are you looking for something soon, like in the next month, that we would get the board together here?
Summer, maybe?
Or is it a summer topic? Is that too late?
Yeah, I would say that it would be in your best interest to do it before July, because I know in July is kind of a month that many of you are signed off, and so are the principals. But remember, last year, at the beginning of August, we came back with a plan that you executed. So you hit all 5, and I think if we could set up between now and July 1st, And now that it's raining, we can stay a little bit longer.
No, we don't. But I think it's going to have to be like we can figure out a date in May or June that we can involve our new board and go and dedicate it just to this. And then I think we get together to talk about goals and outcomes of that to bring to the board for that meeting.
Perfect. All right, so Maria, what we'll look at, my guess is, given with the awards night and graduation, that June would be the better time to look for, because May, you're also busy with next month, we onboard Helen, and also you select all the positions. I will recommend that we have a work session. The only thing I would ask is if I could meet with some of you one-on-one, just to say, is there anything wrong with did the administrative team identify the right targets? And then from that, if you could look at, they all worked on the timelines, and they were, as an admin team, we were too fast, too slow. So we were kind of split. And so I think that would be really helpful for me.
I'm fine.
Okay. Does that sum up for you?
Yep.
All right.
When we do meet with you, I'd love to hear some of the reasons why the admin thought we were too fast or too slow.
Sure.
To each option.
All right.
Anything else, guys? Otherwise, we're gonna move on. Anybody else? Let's see, we're on item 10, recognition of visitors. Anybody awake that would like to be recognized?
You approved the agenda.
I didn't get privy to all of the slides.
The NHL, face-off doesn't start till 8:45.
All right, move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.